So, you just got it.
So good.
Because I think that's going to come up, seriously, not a pun, that what actors are and aren't allowed to do, I think is going to be part of our discussion tonight, or what they have to advocate for. And actually to be allowed to speak out and be strong artists. The studio, those of you who don't know that, who are guests or haven't really heard this before, is that the studio exists. Sure, we have classes and workshops so that you can get stronger and stay as strong as you already are. But it's also there to advocate for actors. A lot of things we do are to empower actors and to inspire actors. That's part of what we're doing tonight. I'm really thrilled to have Denise Gough here. This is a real treat. This was arranged from one of our studio members, Madison Ridley, who can't be here. She's in Argentina. Where's Stephanie Sutherland? There you are. They were both in People, Places, Things with Denise, and Maddie set up the intro, and then we bumped into each other in a coffee joint, which is fortuitous, and you were just so lovely.
You followed me.
How many times?
All the time.
Yeah. So many times I almost said something, and I hid behind a tree.
I saw you.
Anyway. I wanted you to see me. So we're going to begin casually. This is those of you who haven't been, this is just a conversation that you're overhearing, sort of. Because I want it to be freewheeling. And if my questions, get boring, you'll just take over and talk about what you want to talk about. And eventually we'll have some people in the audience ask questions, things we haven't covered, things you're wondering about. So a lot of people saw People and Places and Things, and that's what in America we're first known for in New York, and now with Harper and Angels in America. So we can talk about that, but I think I'm curious, and I think other people are curious about what happened, when you came from Ireland to London, the career. I think that's be useful for people to hear about. Do you mind talking about that?
So getting from Ireland to London, I left home when I was very young, so I was 15. 14 when I started leaving home, 15 when I left home, and 16 when I got to London. So I was living in what I believed was a movie of my own life. And then I got to London and reality hit. And so I don't come from a background where acting is a viable option. I'm one of 11 children. My parents, my father was an electrician. Obviously, they just wanted me to get a proper job and go to college and all of that stuff. So I didn't do any of that. And so really going to London was, I always wanted to be an actress. I call myself an actress. I'm not yet, we're not yet treated the same as the boys, and so until we are, I would choose to call myself the opposite. Yeah, and also our journey to get on the stage was far more difficult than a man's journey. So I get kind of
the idea of acting is supposed to be an
touchy.
empowering thing.
Yeah, but I don't believe. But how is it empowering when we were talking before about Hamilton, for example, and so you hear there's 40 actors and it's amazing, it's huge representation and it's great, and then you find out that 3 of them are women. So if I keep under the umbrella of being an actor, then I'm not showing how actually we're not represented still in the same way as we are on our way to being, but until we are there, I find the notion of calling myself, especially when I'm called a female actor, I think, also I'm a female version. I don't understand that. Also, we had to pretend, in order to get on the stage in the first place, we had to pretend to be men. So I don't know. I get in so much trouble, and people say it's deeply unfeminist and everything. And I defend anyone's right to choose. I don't think that I'm not trying to get women to call themselves actresses, but I feel like, for me, it's something I'm deeply proud of, to be a woman at the level I'm at in this industry, because it doesn't happen for as many of us as it should. And so when we get to a point where we're absolutely paid the same and there is 50-50 representation, then I'm happy to be considered an actor. But until then, I am an actress.
So when it comes to the award shows, is this a good thing or not that they're separate categories?
Well, what I do is gender specific. It is. Even if, I'm going to do a play next year where I swap roles with a man, and we will do a classic and we'll swap roles. It'll be great. But what I do, it's like somebody said to me, this woman got really upset. She said, you wouldn't call a doctor a doctress. And I'm like, yeah, but a doctor, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman to be I play women. Even if I'm playing a male character, I identify, as I know that others don't, but I identify as female, as a woman. And so I play women. And so for me, it is slightly different what I do. So I'm all right with it being separate categories. To be honest, I think awards are a load of bullshit anyway. So the thought, like I have a friend whose boyfriend said to me, he said, oh God, you actors, you're just so funny, prancing around trying to get the gold statue. I mean, it is, my sister is a heart surgeon, the amount of weight and kind of esteem we seem to get from this little thing that somebody says, you're the best. How do you know I'm the best at anything? Anyone here could be. So I just don't take it seriously enough to have a huge argument about whether there should be different categories. It's like, who cares anyway? People are dying. That said, if I don't win the show,
You just fucked yourself out.
No, I didn't. I honestly, for me, the work is everything. Everything.
Yeah.
I don't give a... God, I swear too much. So. But somebody tell... And also, I'd been working for a long time before somebody decided to call me the best actress. Come on. You can't get caught up in that, she says with her Olivier. It's a great place to be saying all this from. But I used to say this many years ago, before any of this happened. I always believed the work is the thing, So do good work.
Because when you came to London, you were not. I mean, you wanted
No,
to.
I was a bar. I was a barmaid for years, and then I did a class in an old nightclub that had been shut down because everybody kept getting shot when they went there. And the teacher of that class turned out to be a tutor at a drama school, and I had no money, and I had enough money to do one audition because you have to pay 35 quid to audition for drama school. And so I did one audition, and it turned out that teacher acted as a referee for me, and then I got a full scholarship and they paid my rent. And if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be an actress today. So I have real kind of issues about how, with fees and how much you have to pay for stuff, because a lot of the time it's those people who don't have access to funds wind up being the ones, because we know how to work and we know how to hustle. So I feel like what's starting to happen, especially in England, is with privatization. It's just
is it?
We
talked about this in the lobby, that you know how expensive it is here to go to.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But you guys have got it all tied up in health insurance and stuff. I just don't know how people. It's are you kidding me? How? Yeah, I have a lot of respect for what you got, because I remember saying to Stephanie and when we did People, Place and Things, you guys work way harder than we do. They were on it, so on it. From the moment they did the audition, the movement teacher said they just come in totally ready. And in London, there's not as much of a need, I guess, to, I know people in America who have had to turn down acting jobs because they get paid more being waiting tables, and that's really hard to hear that. You should be able to do the work.
Well, that surprises me, because everything I've heard about you, read about you, is just how determined and how hard you worked to get here.
Yeah, but how hard I worked to have to live, though, as well. I had to pay rent regardless of whether I was getting, you have to keep yourself alive. And I think for me also, I had done really well for a period of time. I only ever wanted to do theatre. I went to meet my agent. I remember at drama school, I had long blonde hair, and so it became really apparent straight away that I was going to be put into a box of, like, I got cast as Irina in Three Sisters, and I was like, oh God, kill me now. And the thing was, the reason I felt that way was because the previous semester or term, we call it, I had played Alison in Look Back in Anger, and so I could see a pattern starting, and I thought, I'm not doing wafty blonde girl for the rest of my career. And so I shaved my head. And they were terrified. And from then on, I got these really great parts. And because I made it clear that for me, it wasn't about what I looked like. I wanted to do really great theatre work where I could immerse myself in all of that. And so when I met my agent, I was like, I never want to do TV or film or anything. I want to do theatre. 5 years later, I was like, please, I need a job in some TV series because I couldn't pay my rent, So now thankfully I get to do both. But I was always very clear that I wanted to do theatre, and when you do theatre, you have to keep yourself alive between jobs. And so I would do a job in the West End, and then I would be waitressing at a restaurant around the corner, serving people who had paid 50 quid to see me in a play the previous fortnight, And if that's not good for your humility, I don't know what but it was really good for me. It was really good. And I think I'm really grateful for how it happened, how slow it took, because before I did People, Place and Things, I hadn't worked for 13 months. And that was really tough, and I had to get to a place of realizing that I'm more than an actress. Like, my dad used to always say when I left home, he used to say to me, because I was like, I'm going to be an actress. And he said, you're somebody's daughter, and you're somebody's sister, and you're somebody's friend, and you're somebody's aunt, and I couldn't hear it back then, but in that 13 months, I went deep into the knowledge that I am not my job. I refuse to give this industry more than the massive amount of work that I already do. They don't get my self-esteem.
Like your self-worth gets wrapped up in
Yeah, totally. And then you start becoming, oh God, and then I have to start fixing all of this, and like me. And I think, no, I'm done. So, and it was great because it's like the universe prepared me for what then happened, because of course you get to a point of going, I don't need it. And it goes, have it all. But it was great because by that point I was like, this is fantastic. I can now, I'm thinking finally, I'm nearly 40, and I'm thinking I'm going to be able to buy somewhere to live. I'm probably going to work pretty much in the theatre for the rest of my life. I can get people to do things with me. I can have conversations about stuff. I've done it. It's great. And I didn't have to kind of like do it in a way. I just see people so terrified of the moment stopping, and you're like, oh God, I just don't want to be that. It's too painful, the thought that an audition or somebody can tell me, kind of waiting to be picked, and also the notion of having to compete with other women. I'm not up for that, And I remember since I was very young, like my first job, I remember auditioning over and over for something, and I didn't get it, and I was devastated, but I made a decision that whenever I didn't get a job, I would go and see the woman who got it, and I would celebrate that there was a woman on a stage. And when I went to see that play, if they had cast me, it would have been a disaster because I was so wrong for that production, And so then I started developing this thing about how when I go to an audition, I imagine that the character is somewhere deciding. So it's not the director, it's not the producer, it's not the money people. Somewhere in the ether is this form that needs a body. And if I'm not right, it doesn't mean that I'm not good or not worthy, it's just I'm not right. Like if I had had my way, I remember I would have really wanted to do A Doll's House, and it went to an actress called Hattie Morahan, and I went to see her, and I was like, oh my God, there's no way I would have ruined that production. And I wanted to do Stella in Streetcar, and I went to see it, and I thought me and Gillian Anderson would have not worked as sisters. Our energy is too similar. Like everything happens. The character will get the body she needs, And so that has helped me, so I don't have to compete with anyone.
Well, these are all, I don't know if you call them techniques or coping mechanisms, or maybe something more inspirational than that. But that you figured out how to stay the course, how to stay in it. I mean, you
without hating people and without seeing other women as a threat, or without like feeling like as I get older, it's getting scary. I don't do any of that. I'm having the time of my fucking life, and so why would I say to myself, oh, it's gonna end, and she's gonna, oh my god, and who cares? Like, it's all happening right now. And also, I am working in this industry. Like, the world is so much bigger than this industry, but we get told that it's not, and then they put shiny things in front of you to kind of distract you from the fact that people are dying, you know?
Do you think if this had happened when you were 25?
Dead. Dead. If I had had access to money, to more clubs, to all the booze and drugs that everyone wants to throw, like if I had had access to, I'd have destroyed myself. Because when I was 25, I thought when I get to be an actress, that's when I'll be okay. And then I got to be an actress and I wasn't quite okay. And you realize, oh, it's not outside me. You have to go in, and that's the greatest thing, playing parts too. If you know how to go in and like, I don't know, not do it for, like I'm doing Angels in America on Broadway, like, and people are like, how do you feel about doing this American role on this? And it's like, well, I've been chosen to do that role. So I can either be fearful and think I can't do it, or I can just fucking enjoy this, you know, like. And also playing really difficult parts. Everyone, when I was being interviewed about people, places and things, and people sort of want it to be difficult for you. And I know a lot of actors that I think, you know, so I have problems with the method, for example. I just think it's not that difficult. Like, why do you need everybody to call you by your character's name? If you can't switch it on and switch it off, I am not interested. Like, I never had the luxury. You know, I had to wait tables. So if I was like, well, actually, I'm in character. So I find all of that problematic. But also, when I did that play, I mean, it was hard, and everybody, because I was knackered and adrenalized, and my life exploded, and it was really full on. But the actual doing of that part was so joyful. Every single moment that I got to do that was joyful. And yet, it's like we finally get to do those roles, and then you want everyone to know how difficult it is. It's like a curtain call, you know? You see people in the curtain call. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see you tell me how hard you've worked. Stop it. You know? I was like Muhammad Ali in my curtain calls. I was like that. This is the fucking best. You just have to enjoy it, right?
Well, yeah. I'm getting back to the thing about
I know, I go tangent.
I'll remember. But because you've got some kind of, I don't remember what they call it in London, but like a newcomer award or
I know, 12 years I'd been working. 12 years. And I picked it up and I said, I think it was all the critics from London all sitting in a room. I said, I think we can all agree I'm not quite a newcomer, but I'll take it. But I remember thinking, because I'd been nominated at the Evening Standard Awards for newcomer, and I thought, don't you fucking dare make me go up there and take this award from some child who has just started out. I never want to apologize. If I'm going to be given a shiny trinket, then I'm going to go, cheers, thanks very much, that's brilliant. But the thought that I would have had to apologize. So then I started saying, if they give it to me, I'll turn it down. And my agent was like, please stop. Just fucking take it. Will you just take it? And I was like, no, I'll make a big speech about it. And I'll say, you know, this is indicative of da, da, da. Anyway, they must have got wind because I didn't win that one. But the critics circle, I was like, you can't do anything. You're not competing. They just give it to you and you go to a room like this in an afternoon. And I made a joke of it, and it was, you know, I think they all felt a bit foolish, which is always my aim.
The other thing is that, you know, if you can't tell already, I was doing my research on this. I'm trying to find things from Denise that I thought were useful to all of you. But when you did accept, I think, the Olivier,
Yeah.
what did you
I pointed out that we were all white. Why were we all white? Why the fuck, in a year, in London, are the 5 actresses in the Best Actress category all white? Like, I can't even begin. It was like the Oscars. When the Oscars happened and it was a whitewash, I thought this is a great opportunity for everyone who wins to say something. Call it out, just say something. But the fear of not being a part of the gang makes everyone just go, okay, thanks, I got the award, it's great, it's fine. Oh, come on. Like, how can you tell? That year, my friend Noma, she was drafted in, Kim Cattrall was doing this huge show at the Royal Court Theatre, which is a subsidised theatre. And she was drafted in with 6 days to opening. She went on stage the first night with the script in her hand. She sold out the show. She sold it out. Now, if that had been a white actress who had done that, she would have been given every award going. And I really, truly believe that. And so that night, when I won that award, I couldn't. You can't. I mean, what? I stand there and go, cheers, thanks, thank you so much. I mean, look, I worked very hard. I don't feel like, you know, if you want to give me that stuff, then give it to me, that's great, fine. I don't feel like I don't deserve these things because I've put the time and the work and the effort in, not for that reason, but that starts to happen, right? So I get it. I get that that's part of the game. But don't expect me to say nothing when award ceremonies are the things that kids watch. I used to watch the Oscars when I was a child before I knew that I was never going to care about awards. But I always saw myself reflected, you know, white woman. I saw myself everywhere. Can you imagine if it's hard for a white woman in this industry, what it is like for anyone else? Like, so I get really... I get really upset about it, and there's a touch of it again this year, and I just feel like, I think the commercialization of theatre is taking over, and I feel like because of that, young, non-white or little girls of colour are not going to see themselves reflected on very public forums where we're being given gold statues, and I think that is deeply troubling. Especially because my life is not like that. Like, anyway, so yeah. So I tried to make I was told you have 40 seconds, and so I tried to make it mean something. And then Kenneth Branagh, who won Best Actor, talked for about 3 minutes, and I was like, it's typical. It's typical. I could have gone on for all night, but my father was furious. He said, can't you just take the award? Anyway, I was glad that I did that because it felt like, you know, it felt like I was stating what, you know, what we should be using those moments for, as opposed to another way to tell self-congratulation. Like, don't worry, I'm good at congratulating myself. I don't particularly need an award.
What else gets you going? What other things are you advocating for publicly?
Well, I was part of setting up, and I was at the very first meeting of Equal Representation for Actresses, which is, we're trying to get equal representation for actresses across the board by 2020.
Is that like what McDormand was talking about?
Yeah, so there's a version here, so I'm kind of we're all starting to link up, which is amazing because, as has been proven recently, when us gals talk to each other and actually support each other to speak out and everything, it's incredibly powerful, and it's exactly what I think our industry can be quite frightened of. And so, yeah, so that, you know, we're 51% of the population, and we are less than a third across TV, film, and theatre. I mean, I just don't understand that. Also, we buy the tickets a lot of the time, you know, so I love men as well, by the way. I really, really love men. But you know, I feel like we still have a long way to go with that and representation of, you know, people of colour.
Excellent. I wanted to ask you about, because you love theatre so much, and you said you could just do theatre your whole life and so forth. As long as I have a house. What is camera acting? Is it a necessity that you are accepting, or is it something that actually interests you?
Look, I want to get good at it, really good at it, because what's the point otherwise? And I want to do good work, but it's not what excites me particularly. But I am starting to work with some good people, and I remember, like, yeah, I think when you watch people who've done a lot of theatre then transfer that to camera, it can be really interesting too. Like when I remember watching Mark Rylance doing that thing he did, you know, that thing on TV. Wolf Hall. Yeah, so he did that and he was wonderful in it, and he, you know, he turned down, Steven Spielberg wrote him a part like 30 years ago or something in a movie, and Mark consulted the I Ching, because that's what he does. And he was told, yeah, but it worked. Like, he was told that he's a big community person, and what he got back from it was that he should go and be part of a community. So he went to the RSC and turned down Steven Spielberg. And he was asked in an interview, they said, wow, why did you do that? And you must have been sad that you did that. And he said, no, I met my wife, my current wife, 3 days after I started at the RSC, and I went on to run the Globe Theatre, and now Steven Spielberg writes me into every film he does. So you win. If you go toward the thing that makes you the most fulfilled, then the other stuff will take care of itself. So for me, it's about doing good work across the board. You know, when I was out of work, I remember I was auditioning for this thing that was awful, and I remember thinking, fuck, if they offer it to me, I have to do it, because I am so broke. I have nothing. And I remember, it was just awful, so awful, and thankfully I didn't get it, and I did People, Place and Things instead. But I remember in that moment thinking, if this is the thing that I have to then talk about for years, because it would have made me famous, you know, and then I would have had to talk about it, like at things like this. Can you imagine the difference? You know, talking about a part that meant nothing in a series that is now, they've all been sexually assaulting each other. I mean, it's just, that could have been the way it went for me, and thank God it didn't, you know. So now it's just, now I get the opportunity to do smaller parts in really good things, you know. But I would always, if the part is great in theatre and shit on screen, I would always do the great part.
But you had a series, right? We haven't seen it over here, I think.
Gorilla.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, the John Ridley series about the Black Power movement in London in the 70s. Yeah, that was an incredible experience, and John was amazing to work with, and I worked with Danny Mays, who's one of the best actors in England. And so, I've done some really nice stuff. But again, like, smaller parts, I don't need to be out there doing that. It is not my aim in this life to be, like, known, like, famous. That's not what this has ever been about. And so that gives me a lot of power in an industry that tells you that that's where you should be getting to. Do you know what I mean?
Well, Steven Spielberg will probably be.
I turned him down. It was a shit part. So there you go.
Writing your parts in, a couple of years.
It was.
So do you mind telling, I know you've told the story many times, but I'm sure everybody would love to hear it, of what happened in that audition for People, Places, Things.
Yeah.
Such a good story.
Well, the first audition, I remember going into so I hadn't worked in a long time. I thought, because I'm quite outspoken and I can be quite difficult for certain people to work with, I thought maybe I had a bad reputation at the National, and that's why they were never inviting me to audition. So I got my agent to ring up and see, and they said, no, we just haven't thought of her for, because that happens too, doesn't it? You know, there's no linear thing in this industry. It's like you get up and down and up and down. Anyway, so then she sent me this script and said they've been auditioning for a long time. I mean, they had seen everyone. All my friends had been in for this thing. It had been workshopped with Sally Hawkins. It was like they were really searching. Not enough to ask me in for an audition. And also Jeremy Herrin and I had done a gala night many years ago, like one night we'd worked together and we'd gotten on really well, but again, he hadn't thought of me for it. So I went into the National. And I saw the other two names on the list. Oh no, that was the second audition. So I went in and I did the audition, and then I was called back. but not for a month, because I had managed to get this TV job. And so I had to wait a month to go back in. And so when I went back in, I snorted like loads of icing sugar, and I wrecked the room, like wrecked it. And I remember thinking before I went in, I said a prayer and was like, okay, well, I'm ready and I'm here, but I'm not going to freak myself out about this. I read them a little passage on addiction, about how brave it is for an addict to hope. And then Jeremy made me do the doctor scene. So I hadn't prepared that. So I prepared the phone call, and I can't remember what else. And then I remember his face as well. I remember his face thinking, I'll fuck her up on this. He said, we'll do the doctor scene. I said, okay. And we did the doctor scene. And then I did the phone call. Yeah, and by the end of it, the room was destroyed. I was sweating, and I said, so that's what I would do. Obviously, you would direct me. And before that audition, I had seen the names of 2 other women on the list, both women that I knew. And I thought, well, it's anyone's game here, and those 2 are really great. So again, she's going to come around and she's going to decide what body she needs. And obviously she needed mine. Because then that evening I got a phone call. I was on my way to the theatre, and I got a phone call from my agent, and she said, do you want the good news or the bad news? And I said, the bad news. And she said, there isn't any, we're going to the National. But you have to remember as well, at that point, because I was interviewed last week by a radio station, and he was saying, so you knew it was going to be your big break, and I did not, nor did I care. All I cared about was I was going to play that part in the small theatre at the National. That was it. I had no idea that anything like this was going to happen. I was entirely focused on the moment. And I remember showing up on the first day and Barbara Martin saying to me, because we had tussled, because we work so differently. She like makes loads of notes and is constantly thinking, and I'm like, oh, can't even think about the script. And so on the first day, I was like, I'm going to just cry. I'm going to keep crying. And she said, well, darling, we have to hold our nerve. And I turned to her and I said, absolutely fucking not. I'm not going to hold my nerve at all. I'm going to cry and fucking cry, because I am so grateful that I'm here. And then I remember the deputy artistic director saying to me, oh, come on, Dee, you deserve to be here. And I said, make no mistake. This isn't me feeling like I don't deserve to be here or needing to be told how good I am. This is gratitude for something bigger than being picked. This is like a whole, I don't know, it was like a spiritual experience for me. And then I remember the very first preview. Oh yeah, God! The very first preview, there's a part of it where I'm on my own on the stage on the phone, and I have to like snort a line of coke, light a cigarette, hit a really funny moment. Like there's so much going on, and it was the only bit that I was frightened of, because I've no one on stage with me, and I like people on stage, and so before I went on, I said a prayer. I was like, right, I'm here. Just do whatever you need to. I'm ready. And like the entire staff of the National Theatre are always at the first preview. And I stepped out on stage, and one of the trap doors just cracked open, and there was a huge hole on the stage, and I thought, okay, that's there. Just right there. And I carried on, and I'm sitting on the stage, and it's amazing, isn't it, when you're on stage and something really awful is going on, and you're still doing your lines, and you're completely committed, but at the same time there's this whole fucking dialogue going on. So I was thinking, how is everyone getting on stage? Like, they're going to fall down the hole. And then halfway through the phone call, the stage manager came on and said, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we have to stop the show. And without even thinking, I turned to the audience and I went, oh, fuck, I was really good in that bit. And that's what happened. Everybody laughed. And I left the stage, and then I went back on 15 minutes later, and I said, it's live theatre, ladies and gentlemen. And I went into the phone call. And the crew member who had made the fuck up, like who had broken the trap, came up after the show in floods of like sweating. I'm so sorry. And I was like, you have given me the greatest gift that anyone could have ever given to me, because now I have no fear of anything, because it was like the universe was going, I need you to be completely unafraid on this one. I can't have any neuroses. I can't have you going, oh my God, I'm going to fuck up the phone call. Who cares? You're on stage. You're doing this play. I will crack the stage open and I will stop the show and you will still be fine. And so now, like, there's been 3 show stops in Angels in America and I am just a whore for them. I just love it. I love it. Any excuse, you know. The other night, there's this whole diorama scene, and it broke, and so we had to finish, and we had to stop. And then when we came back on, my first line is, they're having trouble with the machinery. And of course, everybody laughed, and I couldn't help myself. So that was first preview. But then on the 4th preview, the night before the press night, which is what everyone works themselves up into, the people that are from this recovery centre, the Freedom Recovery Centre in Catford, who we had spent loads of time with, all in recovery, like living in this like really shitty house in Catford, getting each other sober, like really triumphant people, and have been part of the whole journey. They came to see the show, and there was 2 people with them who were newly sober, never been to a theatre, and at the point when she rings to go to a meeting at the end, one of them shouted, "Good girl," from the audience, and I had to stand like this and pull myself together and carry on with the show. And I thought in that moment, it doesn't matter critically what happens here. It doesn't matter. This is my press night. This is my night. These people feel like I'm telling their story truthfully. That's all that matters. And then the press night happened, and I went out onto the stage. Everyone kept standing up at the end, like from the first preview, so I knew that was a bit odd. But also, people stand up a lot in the theatre, and I thought it was a big part and all of that stuff. So I went onto the stage when everyone was gone to say thank you, and I was sat on the stage and I thought, fuck, this is a bit different. Something has happened, because on a press night, for that to happen, for everyone to be on their feet, this is weird. And so again, said a little prayer saying, just when I go out into that room where everyone's going to be, just let somebody be there that I know, you know. And because I'd been in big plays before, but always behind someone, so you could let them go out and do all this stuff, and then you could just be at the party with your mates, you know. And, but that night I knew there was no getting away from it. Like, they were going to want to talk to me, weren't they, really? And so I gathered myself together and I walked out, and as I went to the door was pulled open, and it was my friend Richard standing behind the door, and he just gave me a hug and then sent me off into the party. And I just thought, I'm just so looked after if I open myself up to being looked after, you know. If I can keep it about something bigger than they like me, then really profound things happen, you know. And then the reviews came in, and me and my sister the next day, I mean, it was hilarious. We were in this cafe going, listen to this one. I mean, it's every actor. I was just like, it's ridiculous. My friend Sinead Cusack, you know, she's one of the Cusacks who are like an acting dynasty in Ireland. And she rang me. And 3 months previously, I'd been at her house saying, I'm broke. I can't do it anymore. I'm fucked. Can you lend me your hairdresser to do my highlights? And and she did, and she also introduced me to her son, Sam, took my headshots for a really cheap rate and everything. So she rang me and she said, well, I hope they fucking well know that it was me that started all this. So I have all of these people who were there through the real Siberian years, you know, and they're all so happy. And we all get to share that too, you know. Because I'm an old-fashioned story.
So many people in this room, I think, saw that performance, or saw one of the performances. But when I was I went because people were talking about this play and about this actress. And
see?
You can train us.
Yeah.
So,
but by the time I've trained you, we'll get gender parity, and then I'll be like, actor!
And you were incredible. It was a phenomenal performance, and I was so grateful for it. But I really liked the play, and I liked the company, and the direction, and the design elements. And everything about it.
But we are a family of people.
But to me, that's a really great performance, because it's not, oh, she was great, the play is done. It wasn't a turn, it was a real commitment.
It's a really massive thing that I have too about leading a company, you know, that when you are a lead in something, the company is the most important thing, because they create the world for you to navigate in. So whenever I go and see, I mean, how many times have you seen an actor do a central performance and it's like he's in or she's in a different play, and you just think, they're everything. Like my gang on that, as Stephanie will tell, like there were nights, I remember coming off one night, they were all really lazy. And I was furious. And I came off stage, because we've worked together for so long. Like I remember Laura, who understudied me in the West End, and I made her understudy me because she hadn't trained, and I thought this would be a really good thing for her to get in her body. And she came up, I came off stage furious, and she went, "That was really shit, wasn't it?" And I was like, yeah, it was really shit, because if you guys don't do the thing that you do, I then have to do everything on my own, and I don't want to do that. Like, you have to, like, I think there are performances I've seen where the company kind of don't have to be there because the person is acting with themselves, and it's deeply boring. But when you have a company like I have been so lucky to have in that company, like every night, when whatever, no matter how tired we were, every single person was with me. Like Jacob, my friend Jacob, who played as somebody called him, the little junkie lad. I remember I would look at any point, I could look at any one of them, and they're on me, and they're listening, and I'm just so forever grateful to them all. And also we've had to go through many incarnations, you know, and they had to deal too with, you know, when it happened in the West End, they also had to deal with what was happening to my life around it. So my company was witnessing their lead have her life kind of become, like I was everywhere suddenly, and when you're not somebody who's done it for that, it was a bit annoying, because you're like, oh God, I'm trying to do a fucking play, and there was a lot of extra stuff that, you know, you think it looks fun, but actually when you're doing a play, it's tiresome to have to put on a dress and tell everyone. Anyway, God, I'm really high-class problems here, right?
Well, the thing I heard from Maddie, and I'm sure Stephanie and Kevin McGonigal, who I met, that it truly was a different show every night.
Yeah, of
because
course.
Because it was
fresh meat.
Fresh made every night.
But also that's because they were different with me every night. Like Kevin was a lunatic. There was one night that Alistair, we had often said, I wonder what would happen if, like, he didn't catch me at that moment where she runs across the stage to, like, dive on him. And then one night it happened, and we went for each other, and I was like, oh my God. And then we were stopped, obviously. But he was always so, like, the first half was always harder, and rehearsing the first half was horrible because she's so angry and so on her own. But then the second half, when she starts letting down the barriers, you know, it was just so loving. Like, to be on stage with people who love you that much is like, they were so protective of me, and we went on we got it to New York. We started that in that small theatre together, and then we were in New York, and so we had a deep connection that I'm hoping, you know, I'm on a secret mission it's not so secret anymore now that I've turned it on you, but I want to get it back. I want to bring it back, and the only way that will happen is if it's with all of us. I'm not doing it with anyone else. You know, these are my people, and the play exists because of that too. You know, we created like a recovery space together. It was amazing.
Bring it back. Can you talk about that?
Well, I don't know if it's going to happen, but there's talk of doing it on Broadway, I'm hoping. But obviously, like, I have to, that's why Angels is so, I mean, it's great that I'm here doing Angels in America, because, you know, in New York, for people to take a risk on you, to do a Broadway show, you know, you build up to that, and I'm kind of going, I know I've been here 6 months, but let me have a Broadway. Confidence. Yeah, but I think it would be great to see a play about addiction like that on Broadway.